All right, I'm just going to dive right in on this. Yeah, and I'm just going to start you off with there's so much like timeline confusion that it's ridiculous. Incredibly difficult. I'm guessing because of so much trauma happening in so many points throughout this period that I guess I don't know. I don't know what you do. Do you split into alters? I don't know. Create other identities? I don't know. Whatever I'm doing, you know, how I'm healing is helping this. It's helped, you know, going back and looking over the other years I've done. But this is by far the most difficult. Like, you want to talk about, like, just total, I can't access things. Okay, so 6 years old I was when we moved down here out to the country. Again, my aunt had married into that other family, that very wealthy family, probably a couple years prior, maybe 3 years prior, 2 or 3 years prior. So we were very young. I remember, I think before we moved down, so we were like 4 or 5 years old, and, you know, my uncle flew us on his private plane. He flew the plane, me and my cousins and my mom and my brother and me and my aunt to Disney World. I still remember that. So, and, you know, me and my cousins grew up together at that time. I mean, my mom babysat, and I think we did everything together. We were like brother and sisters. My female cousin's only like 2 weeks older than me. And then my male cousin's is like 2 years younger than me, I think. So anyways, that's another thing. So 6 years old, I moved down here. And then that's when I think there was like 2 years of like good things. Like, it was so new. We were out in the woods. You know, I remember my stepdad was just so full of life. He loved being out in the country. You know, so I just remember like the enthusiasm and doing things, you know what I mean? So I remember that up until like 8, and then like 8 years old is when things start really just, that's when the whole timeline, I mean, it's like very strange. Something happened, you know, something happened between 8 and 12, like over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, that just creates it impossible at this moment. Hopefully with this video, I'll be able to, you know, start clearing this up. But I mean, what I'm about to go into is just, I can't even put timeline on it right now. While my stepdad was still there, I was, and again, it's hard to put a fucking finger on the time, how old, maybe 10, but it's hard for me to say, maybe 10 years old. I was seeing apparitions and hearing things, and so we had a loft, and it was open, you know, so you could see downstairs, and I remember it just started one time, and I remember being so young, like I thought it was my stepdad, but it wasn't, you know, but I was so young, and I heard somebody downstairs, and mine and my brother's room was right up above, and I remember getting out, and I'm looking down, and I'm like on all fours, and I'm looking down, and I saw my stepdad, and it was really weird, and I was just like, wow, you know, what's he doing? And I was like, hey, you know, Jeff. And he didn't answer, and he just kept on moving around, like doing stuff, you know, and I was like, man, this is really fucking weird. And then come to find out, you know, it wasn't him. I was seeing apparitions. I saw his apparition many times downstairs. I'm going in and out, doing things, and it wasn't him. And what I'm trying to say is, I knew it wasn't him because it would be he looked up at me. Like, and I got chills down my spine right now. Just remember, like, I don't even think about that shit. Because I remember, you know, when I said that, and he looked, and he eventually ended up looking up at me, and it wasn't him. It was something else that looked like him. So, you know, and I never for once thought, you know, it was for real him, because it was definitely not. It was, in the eyes, it was like something else. So, in getting to my point is, nobody else in the house heard it. Everybody else was dead asleep every time. And eventually I had the balls. I had ran over to my mom in his room, and he's laying in bed with my mom. And that's what really, man, I remember getting really freaked out then. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the fuck? So, yeah, man, I dealt with those apparitions and hearing things and things going on. And the time period and how long for, I can't say. It was while my stepdad was there. Afterwards, I don't remember any of that happening. But again, there's so much fog and confusion, guys. There's so much shit that happened. I mean, like, and I'm just putting it out there. I floated. So around the side of the house, we had this above ground pool. I don't even remember when that was put in, but I know that after it was put in was when I floated, and I was able to go over there, and I just remember floating, and I could float. I remember a good between 6 to 10 times. And I don't remember why I went over there in that spot all by myself, but I remember it being so horrific that I was trying to, I wanted to forget. I remember just wanting to know that everything was going to be okay. Yeah, I mean, this is the most I've thought on this in a while. So, you know, I mean, forever. And again, I mean, things are so mixed up, you know, like I remember specifically, I floated, it was about 20 feet 15 to 20 feet in the air. You know, I was right at the roof line. We had a double story on the front end of a A-frame. So it was about 20 feet in the air, but 15 to 20 each time I would go out there. It was different heights. And I just remember it being completely freeing, and it was like my little secret, and I could go and release like all the fear and just like certain death, I guess. I don't know. Weird, man. I remember possibly having many chronic health issues when I was a kid, such as stomach issues. I had severe skin issues. I remember not even being able to walk. Again, timeline, I don't know. These things are so everywhere. But it wasn't only me. My brother was born with eye issues. You know, all kinds of health issues going on in my family. Serious. Like my mom, we used to call her a hypochondriac constantly because, I mean, everything. She had everything under the sun. So yeah, the tons of that. And again, I can't peg anything down right now. Yeah. And then somewhere in there, you know, while my stepdad was there, before he left, he was working in DC. He was working for electrical brotherhood, whatever it is. The, what do you call those? Where they strike? Union. Electrical union, I believe, out in DC. This is vague. So he would be gone all day. And my mom, so they had taken us out. I remember my mom taking this religious thing. I just remember like this religious thing becoming like a real, I remember it going from like the focus on being outside and having a good time and family time and being happy. And I remember it became a religious thing. And I don't know how, I don't know when. I just remember it became, now it's switched from family lovey-dovey and time to everything was about God and the Bible. And I would say that is when all these things started, but it's so hard to say. But that was before my stepdad left. And I think my mom had, so what I would imagine is my mom had taken this shit so extreme that, you know, my stepdad had probably gotten this job, I would imagine, to get the fuck away. You know what I mean? Because this is about the same time when they would get in arguments, and no, it was prior to this probably, but they were getting in arguments. And my mom, I remember the cops getting called. My mom would have bloody nose, or even before the cops would get, I remember her coming to us and just crying. I mean, my mom is an actor. She is an actor. She can, I've seen that woman shed more crocodile tears than anybody else in the world. By far, multiple. I mean, she is an Academy Award winner when it comes to shedding tears, or showing self-righteous anger. She's good at both of those, or putting guilt and shame on people, or twisting a story and manipulating things. So this is what I'm saying. All of this shit was happening about the same time, and it was so traumatic. I mean, things were so bad. I was outside floating. Guys, what I made deals with like wood fairies to be able to float, I guess, and they took my pain away I was having. It was so traumatic. Because my mom wanted us beat so bad, you know, all we would hear. So I guess I'm setting this up for the stress. See, all this is just as I'm getting it out, it's slowly clicking. Because they took us out of public school when I was in 6th grade or 5th grade, something like that. 5th grade, I don't know. Yeah, something early. And started homeschooling. And then I think that's when it really drove my mom crazy, because now she had her kids stuck at home with her all day. So she couldn't do her little lollygagging, whatever the fuck bullshit she was doing all day. She had to now take time for her kids. But I think she committed. What makes sense is that she committed to it because of her. She was probably speaking so crazy about Jesus back then and didn't want us in the evil satanic public schools. So she probably had to commit. And when she committed, she didn't realize what she got herself into. And okay, so then she got overwhelmed, and then that's when it really that sort of makes sense, that kind of timeline there. And then again, but also there were other things going on too with other things as well, because I saw bright lights. I was hearing things at night. I mean, there were all kinds of things. And one thing is, my brother has never, me and my brother have had many conversations about our childhood. And this was never mentioned. I don't think he ever mentioned any of this about the, seeing the apparitions or entities or spaceships or bright lights or misremembering bunches of time constantly all throughout, confusion. I don't know. So this is all new. So I would imagine she was getting stressed, because I remember it might have been our first year of homeschooling, probably. Most likely is when it started, because I don't think my mom put up with a bunch of shit. Like, if everything was about my mom, everything was about how she felt, she had to be comfortable 100% of the time. If not, it was not good. So what I would imagine is it was probably the first year, and then my stepdad started working wherever. The stress was so bad. All she would tell me was how bad. Like, I was responsible when my stepdad away. I was in charge of the family. So everything that a man would do, I was responsible for. And we're talking, I was 8 years old. I was 9 years old. I was very young, extremely young, guys. But I was fine. I liked the responsibility. But I didn't realize what my mom was doing to me. She fucking put me in a position. She used me. She used the fuck out of me, bud. She used the living fuck out of me. So all I would hear, anything. I was told what the truth was. I was never able to say the truth. The truth was always told to me. She always dictated the truth to me. Before my stepdad got home, she made sure I knew what the truth was before my stepdad got home. So that way he could punish me according to the truth and not some story I made up. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So I was threatened. So there was a man there, and she was working a programming on me and making me so afraid for my life at like 8, 9 years old, whatever it was. And then getting my stepdad. And then so what she would do is all day long, wait till he gets home. Wait till he's going to beat you. He's going to beat you. Jesus knows what you did. Jesus knows what you're thinking. Jesus knows. And I just remember crying for years. I think it was probably a couple years that I couldn't believe. And at the same time, I was watching her play her games. And so I think that might have been what sparked me, because see, before she was so loud during their fights, and like you would hear shit smash and go against the wall. And I remember being scared to death and like not. So I think what happened was I started so I peeked in one time and caught her and saw her throwing herself against the wall, saw her slapping herself, saw her pushing and grabbing and yanking and pulling his hair, and while at the same time screaming at the top of it. And all he's doing is just trying to get to the door. He's got his hand on the doorknob and just trying to get out the door. And she is fighting. I mean, physically, like doing, like, I just couldn't believe it. I remember the first time seeing it. I just couldn't fucking believe it, dude. My stomach's churning right now. I'm sick to my stomach. Because this did not happen once. This did not happen twice. This happened over and over and over and over and over and over and over, to the point where all this stuff, all of this, and to where, I mean, she was threatening me before he would get home to beat me for the sins that she said I did. So my stepdad, so she would threaten me like, motherfucker, what's the story? What happened? Why is he beating you again before he gets home? Let's make sure you got this straight. And she would sit there and make me rehearse it. And then have him beat me for her story, for her bullshit. And not just me, or my brother too, you know. Now my brother, I was the one, but my brother was there. But I can only imagine, he was 2 years younger than me, 2.5 years younger than me. I can only imagine. You know what I mean? So, no fucking wonder these kids nobody has any clue the abuse I went through. Nobody. And if you think I'm sitting here at 43 years old and making this up for shits and giggles, you are a sick individual, and you need not ever contact me ever. Ever. Don't even think about me anymore. Don't anything, okay? Leave me alone. Because I obviously got a lot I'm dealing with. So my stepdad still didn't even leave yet. I can't believe he held on as long as he did, and I believe he did was to protect me and my brother, because my 2 sisters were born right around there. See, I had 2 sisters born right around this time too. And all of this crazy shit, we had to take care of our sisters. I mean, it was, guys, it was the craziest shit. You wouldn't even, it was weird. Like, it was so traumatic. And just constantly getting, so, and then my stepdad, so he would get home and he wouldn't even beat us. You know, I remember getting spanked a few times by him, and then him finally just being, I remember her wanting to be there, and then him being like, you know what, that's weird, you know, let this be a man-to-man thing. You stay outside, I'll take care. I remember him getting her out of that, away. And then he started beating the bed instead of us. And we had to act. Yeah, this happened. And this went on until he left, until he finally had enough. And then at 12 years old, when he left, she started beating me. All that crazy shit that he was taking the fucking slack for, she started beating me constantly. I mean, bad. Like, I remember being kicked, like just falling on the floor and just being kicked. Just because she had so much anger and aggression and pissed off about her situation. Having 4 kids and being fucked. Because she ran the man of the house off and I wasn't man enough, obviously. So this shit happened, guys. After he left, it went fucking bonkers. I don't know if he left when I was 11. I don't know if he left when my cousin died, when she beat me so bad that, I mean, my face was completely fucked. It looked like I got beat by a gang of guys. And it was because my cousin had died. She got the call. My cousin on my stepdad's side, like, this bitch didn't even, who the fuck is this bitch to even care? You know what I mean? So I was over there and my little brother and my sisters were making a bunch of noise, crying. So I'm over there yelling at them because my mom was freaking out. My stepdad was on the phone trying to, whatever had happened, I can't even remember. I just remember my mom was fucking acting like the world had just ended. And so I'm over there, I'm like yelling at my brother, like, stop. You guys need to stop and behave. And then from up behind, just bam, and then it was on. She beat the living fuck out of me because I was making noise and taking attention away because she was so sad that my cousin had died on my stepdad's side. So she beat the fuck out of me, and then his funeral was up in a few days. So she made up a story with my stepdad, and then they went in, and we went into these churches, and she brought us up. We went, and it got covered up by the churches, by the deacons, by the elders, by the pastors, by her, by my stepdad. And all this, look, these men had, this is not an excuse for them, but my mom was such a filthy actor. That's what I'm trying to say, guys. Like, I can harbor a lot of things toward a lot of these men, and and that will be talked about. But first, we need to take care of home base. We got to get home base established, okay? We cannot have rottenness and evilness and manipulation and constant lying and games and selfishness and self-righteousness, and we can't have that. I can't have that. It's like a cancer. It's like trying to be a marathon runner and having cancer in both your legs. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. So, yeah, I'm going to stop this here and then keep on going.